The morning sun shone through the large bay windows of Olivia's home, casting warm beams across the hardwood floors. It was a peaceful scene, but Olivia could feel the undercurrent of something off, something she couldn't quite place. Her husband, Gregory, had been distant lately, more so than usual. She had noticed it for weeks now, these small shifts in his behavior that she tried to ignore, but now they seemed to be growing. She tried to push the thought out of her mind, chalking it up to stress from his job, or maybe just the natural ebb and flow of marriage. But deep down, a quiet whisper in her mind kept asking, "Is everything really okay?" Twist S1, the secret call. Olivia's curiosity had gotten the better of her that evening. As she moved into the kitchen to prepare dinner, she caught a glimpse of Gregory standing in the living room, phone pressed to his ear. His back was to her, and his voice, although low, was unmistakable. The words that hit her were enough to make her heart sink. "I think it's time. We can start fresh. It's almost time." Her mind raced, her pulse quickened. She froze, not daring to interrupt, yet unable to pull herself away. She knew it wasn't a work call, his tone, the secrecy, the hush of the conversation, it was all wrong. Fresh? Starting again? Was he talking about their marriage? The words repeated in her mind, each one twisting like a knife. Start fresh. Almost time. The emotional weight of it settled on her chest, and she felt a wave of nausea rise. Was he planning to leave her? Did he want a divorce? Her fingers tightened around the edge of the counter as she tried to steady herself. The room felt too small, the air too thick. She had to hold it together. But what if she was wrong? What if she was just imagining things, overthinking the situation? She stood still for what seemed like an eternity, heart pounding. When the conversation ended, Gregory hung up, unaware that his words had shattered something in Olivia. He walked casually to the kitchen, unaware of the storm that had just started brewing in her mind. "Hey," he said with a smile. "What's for dinner?" Olivia's voice was calm, betraying none of the turmoil inside. "Spaghetti," she managed to say, forcing a smile, though it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She watched him, but the man she once knew now seemed like a stranger. Twist S2, silent observation. In the days that followed, Olivia became more observant. Her actions had changed. She wasn't the passive wife anymore. She couldn't just pretend things were fine. She started watching him closely, noting every shift in his behavior. There were little things at first. Gregory taking phone calls in other rooms, his emails left open on the kitchen counter, but quickly minimized whenever she entered the room. It was the secrecy that stood out the most. He never used to care about hiding his phone, but now he'd guard it like it held the world's most precious secrets. Whenever she'd ask who he was talking to, he'd deflect, or worse, get defensive. "Why are you asking?" he'd say. "It's just business. You know that." But Olivia didn't buy it. There was something off. She couldn't put her finger on it, but her gut told her she wasn't imagining things. The internal struggle gnawed at her. She wanted to trust him, to believe that it was just a phase, but the distance between them had grown too vast. Her mind spun with possibilities. What if he was planning to leave? What if he had been having an affair? Every moment she spent in this quiet uncertainty only deepened the weight of her doubt. She was losing herself, becoming someone she didn't recognize. The woman who used to trust him without question was slowly being replaced by someone who was more guarded, more suspicious. Olivia's thoughts grew darker, spiraling with paranoia. She wanted to confront him, demand answers, but the fear of what she might find held her back. The tension between them had become unbearable, and the more she watched, the more confused she felt. Twist S3, the first confrontation. The breaking point came one night when Olivia overheard Gregory talking on the phone again. This time, it wasn't a casual conversation. His voice was sharp, low, and angry, and the words he spoke hit her like a slap in the face. "She won't suspect a thing. I'll get the papers ready. It'll be easy." Her heart pounded in her ears. The conversation ended abruptly, and Gregory didn't even notice she had entered the room. He was busy as always, but Olivia's anger had finally reached its breaking point. She couldn't stay silent anymore. "Gregory," she called out, her voice trembling slightly, "who are you talking to?" Gregory looked up, his face instantly masking his emotions. He didn't answer immediately, and that silence felt like a guilty confession. "What's going on, Gregory?" Olivia pressed, her hands gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. "Why are you being so secretive? Who are you talking to about starting over? About divorce?" His face twisted with frustration. "Olivia, are you serious? You've got to stop with the paranoia. You're overreacting. This is just work stuff. You know that." But Olivia could see the cracks in his facade. She saw the defensiveness, the way he shifted his weight, the way his words had no real substance. "You're lying," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel the tears stinging the back of her eyes, but she fought them back, refusing to give him that satisfaction. "I heard you, Gregory. I heard you talking about leaving me." The silence that followed was deafening. He looked at her, his eyes hardening as the tension between them escalated. "God, Olivia, you're unbelievable. You're making a big deal out of nothing." His voice was cold now, cutting through the space between them. "You're paranoid, and it's exhausting." Olivia recoiled. The hurt she felt was immense, but the anger was stronger. She had trusted him, believed in him, and now he was dismissing her like she was some paranoid fool. "Why won't you tell me the truth?" she whispered, her heart aching. But Gregory didn't answer. Instead, he turned and left the room, the door slamming behind him, leaving Olivia standing alone in the kitchen, consumed by confusion, anger, and a deep, aching loneliness. She was left to wrestle with her doubts, unsure if she had just destroyed the last of the trust between them, or if this was the beginning of something much worse. Olivia had always believed in her marriage, or at least, that's what she told herself. She had trusted Gregory completely, built a life around him, and thought that they were solid. But now, everything she thought she knew was crumbling around her. It wasn't just the secretive phone calls, the unexplained late nights, or the emotional distance. It was the gnawing feeling that something was wrong, something much worse than she had ever imagined. Twist S4, Discovery of the Affair. The turning point came one evening, when Olivia overheard another conversation, but this one was different. This time, she could no longer deny the truth. Gregory was on the phone in the study, his voice hushed, but unmistakably serious. "Jake is coming over tonight," Gregory said, his voice tight with something Olivia couldn't quite place. "We'll figure it out then. It's time for us to start over. I'll make it happen." Her chest tightened, and she felt a coldness sweep over her, making her hands tremble. Jake? Who was this Jake? The name echoed in her mind, like a distant drumbeat, as Olivia stood frozen in the hallway, piecing the fragments together. For the longest time, she had ignored the little things, his late nights, his mysterious meetings, the way he suddenly became more distant and preoccupied. But now, all those scattered signs fell into place like a puzzle she had been too afraid to solve. The words "start over" and "I'll make it happen" cut through her like a razor. Olivia's breath caught in her throat, her world suddenly spinning. Betrayal. The feeling was sharp, unexpected, and it shattered the fragile trust she had left in Gregory. She had suspected an affair for weeks, but actually hearing it with her own ears, was a different kind of devastation. As she stood there, barely able to move, Olivia's mind raced. She wanted to confront him, to demand the truth, but something held her back. The sheer finality of his words had left her reeling. The life she thought they had built together was nothing more than a facade. It wasn't just the affair that tore her apart. It was the realization that the man she had loved, trusted, and built a future with had been lying to her for who knows how long. She slowly backed away from the door, her legs weak beneath her. It was clear now. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. This was the end of everything she had believed in. Twist S5, protecting her assets. Olivia couldn't sit idly by. She had to act. She had to protect herself. The moment she heard Gregory's words, she knew the marriage was over, even if he hadn't admitted it yet. The pieces were all there, and she was no longer the passive wife waiting for her world to fall apart. The first decision she made was swift and decisive. She transferred $9 million of their shared assets into a separate account under her name. It wasn't just money, it was her lifeline, her shield. Gregory had been planning to leave her, to betray her, and if she was going to survive this, she needed to make sure she didn't lose everything. She didn't hesitate. She had been in charge of the finances for years, and she knew exactly how to handle the transfer without Gregory noticing. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible move, but to Olivia it was everything. As the transaction completed, she sat back in the office chair, her heart racing. A strange sense of power washed over her, mixed with the guilt of betraying the man she once loved. But it wasn't guilt she felt the most. It was a growing sense of empowerment. She was no longer a victim of Gregory's manipulation. She had taken control of her life, and for the first time in weeks she could breathe. Her thoughts swirled, guilt and satisfaction mixing like oil and water. But Olivia knew this was the only option. The money wasn't just for financial security. It was her way of regaining her autonomy. She wasn't going to wait for Gregory to destroy her life. She was going to protect what was hers. And that meant making sure he couldn't walk away with everything. Twist S6, family pressure. But Olivia wasn't the only one who had noticed the shift. Gregory's family, particularly his mother, quickly became aware of the transfer. Olivia should have known that nothing went unnoticed in the Holloway family. They were a tight-knit group, and they prided themselves on controlling everything, especially money. Gregory's mother, Marie, was the first to approach Olivia. She didn't waste any time, her voice calm but laced with an undercurrent of threat. "Olivia," she said, her tone sugary sweet. "You know, this situation is complicated. Gregory and I are very concerned about this money transfer. It's not just about the divorce, it's about what's best for the family." Olivia clenched her jaw, feeling the familiar sting of her mother-in-law's manipulations. "You don't understand," Marie continued, her gaze steady. "This is about family legacy. You can't just take money from the family. It's wrong. You need to reverse the transfer. For everyone's sake." The words felt like a slap in the face. She had been through enough, and now her mother-in-law was using her family loyalty to manipulate her into giving up her only means of security. "I'm not going to reverse it," Olivia said firmly, trying to hold her ground. "You and Gregory have made it clear that you don't care about me, so I'm doing what I need to do to protect myself." Marie's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. "Olivia, this isn't the way to handle things. We've always been here for you. Don't make this more difficult than it has to be." The emotional weight of her words hung heavy in the air, but Olivia's resolve didn't waver. She wasn't going to be swayed by guilt or the Holloway family's pressure. She had made her choice, and for the first time in a long time, she was standing up for herself. As Marie left the room, Olivia stood there, her heart pounding. She had never felt so alone in her life. She was no longer just fighting Gregory. Now, she was fighting his entire family. But she wasn't going to back down. Not this time. The courtroom was colder than Olivia expected. She had walked through those doors with a sense of resolve she didn't know she had. Her eyes sharp, her posture upright. But now, as the proceedings began, her stomach twisted with the weight of everything that had led her here. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about money, though that was part of it. It was about her dignity, her freedom, and the right to reclaim her life. Everything she had ever trusted was now under scrutiny, and for the first time in years, Olivia was ready to face it all head-on. Twist S7. Wife's sudden change in strategy. The trial had been dragging on for days, and Olivia had prepared herself for the worst. But when Gregory's lawyer presented new evidence, it took her by surprise. A forged letter, an accusation that Olivia had been unstable, emotionally erratic, and vengeful. The letter claimed that she had fabricated everything about the affair, the lies, and the financial mismanagement. The air in the courtroom shifted. Olivia felt the sharp sting of betrayal again. But this time, it wasn't just Gregory. It was his entire strategy to tear her down, to turn the tables and paint her as the villain in her own story. She sat in stunned silence as the letter was read aloud. The words were so convincingly written. It could have been her handwriting. Was this how far Gregory was willing to go? He and his family weren't just trying to take everything from her. They were trying to destroy her. Olivia's mind raced. Could she have misjudged the situation? Could her careful planning not be enough to combat this? Her heart pounded in her chest as she processed the weight of the accusation. The sudden shift in strategy left her feeling vulnerable, her confidence shaken. Her hands clenched in her lap. She needed to stay calm, but for the first time in weeks, she questioned whether she had made the right choices. Was she the one who was wrong all along? Was she really the one who had been manipulated? As the courtroom continued to murmur around her, Olivia's resolve slowly started to solidify. She wasn't going to let this new attack break her. She had already taken steps to protect herself, and she had come this far. The question now wasn't whether she could overcome this. It was how she would turn the situation back in her favor. Twist S8. Exposing the truth about Jake. During a brief recess, Olivia slipped into a quieter corner of the courthouse. The noise of the crowd faded as she leaned against the cold marble walls, taking a moment to breathe. But then her phone buzzed. It was an unexpected message from Mia, her closest friend, who had been quietly gathering information on her behalf. Mia. Olivia whispered into the phone, her pulse quickening. What is it? I found something. Mia's voice came through, low but urgent. Jake, he's not just your husband's lover. He's been involved in hiding assets, illegal ones. They've been funneling money together for years. I have proof. The words hit Olivia like a ton of bricks. She felt the world tilt beneath her. Jake, the man her husband had been having an affair with, wasn't just a simple betrayal. He was an accomplice, someone who had been working with Gregory to secure financial control and manipulate the system. This wasn't just about love. It was about power, deceit, and the theft of everything Olivia had built. Olivia could hardly believe what Mia had just uncovered, but she knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. She couldn't let Gregory or Jake get away with it. With trembling hands, she held the phone tighter. Are you sure about this? Olivia asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. I've got the paperwork, Liv. It's all here, Mia replied. This changes everything. Olivia hung up the phone and quickly made her way back into the courtroom, the weight of this new information settling like a stone in her stomach. She couldn't let this opportunity slip through her fingers. She needed to act fast. As the proceedings resumed, Olivia stood up, her voice calm but filled with authority. Your Honor, she said, interrupting Gregory's lawyer, I have new evidence that changes the entire case. Everyone in the room turned their attention to her as she walked toward the judge, holding out the documents Mia had sent her. The lawyer's face faltered as Olivia laid out the proof. Jake's involvement in hiding assets, the fraudulent transactions, the money that had been siphoned away from her. Gregory's face drained of color. Jake's name was now forever linked to their financial scandal. Olivia could see the panic in Gregory's eyes, and for the first time, she felt an overwhelming sense of control. The truth had finally come to light. Twist S9, final victory, and the aftermath. The final moments of the trial were a blur of legal jargon and heated arguments, but Olivia could feel the tide turning in her favor. Gregory's lawyer tried to downplay the revelations, but it was too late. The evidence was irrefutable. The judge didn't hesitate. Based on the evidence presented, the judge announced, I rule in favor of Mrs. Westfield. She will retain full control of her assets and Mr. Holloway will not receive any portion of the family estate. Olivia's heart pounded in her chest as she absorbed the verdict. She had won. She had truly won. The years of fear, doubt, and manipulation had led to this moment of victory. She would never again be at the mercy of Gregory or his family. But as the weight of the decision settled on her, a bitter taste lingered in her mouth. Her victory was bittersweet. She had reclaimed her assets, her dignity, and her freedom, but the emotional toll was immense. She had lost trust in the people she once called family. She had lost the life she thought she had. The scars of betrayal would remain with her forever, even as she walked away from the courtroom, victorious. Olivia took a deep breath as she left the courthouse, her steps slow but purposeful. She had fought for what was rightfully hers, but it had come at a high price. What lay ahead was unknown, but one thing was certain: she would never again allow herself to be anyone's victim. The past was behind her, and now it was time for her to build the life she deserved.